So what if you could turn off hunger? Nice thought, right? You just flip a switch, or you just, tap your forehead, or you just snap your fingers and your hunger is gone. You can control yourself perfectly. You can go as long as you want without eating. Sounds perfectly fun, but be glad you can't do it. If you could, a number of things would happen. Number one, you would die because you would forget to turn it back on. Or number two, you would die because you would choose to test the limits of your biology and see how long you can go, because you wouldn't be getting signals that something is wrong in your body. But let's assume you could turn it on. You could set some sort of reminder to turn it on and not go too long, so that the time would go by really fast and you wouldn't be tempted. That's perfectly good, except who's the arbiter of that? Who better than your body knows how long to keep you away from food? We can train ourselves to eat once a day. We can train ourselves to eat once every 2 days, but getting beyond that, flexibility of our body starts to diminish. But that's not the only problem. The other problem is it creates destructive cycles with our food and with our relationship with our food, because we aren't learning the lessons about self-control. We're not tracking when we become more insulin sensitive to good foods. We aren't noticing foods that our body reacts negatively with, because we're just turning everything off and not having to deal with it. The biggest thing is that you would not learn the lessons of self-mastery. Now, bear with me here on a couple of illustrations. First of all, everybody knows that there are conditions where people do not feel pain. What is it that they have to do, these people who do not feel any pain, when they get up? They have to check themselves to make sure they didn't injure themselves at night. And throughout the day, they have to look at their feet, they have to look at their legs, they have to look at their bodies and make sure they didn't smash their toe on the door and they're bleeding out. They have to make sure when they cook that they didn't put their hand on a hot stove, because they won't sense the pain. The pain, the discomfort is there because that is you. To quote Arnold, the data could be, I sense injuries, the data could be called pain. That's a sensation that is you. Who is the arbiter that determines better than your body what you need? And of course, it can't happen. You have to have your body in flux working with you. It can't be separated from you. Now, look at liposuction. You won't be developing a healthy relationship with food. When I was a big guy in 2012, a year before I went on OMAD, my doctor said, look, there's a picture in the dictionary of heart problems, and your picture is right there. You're not sleeping well, you have very high blood pressure, and you classify as morbidly obese. He said, I can approve gastric bypass for you. And I said, hell to the no. And then he said, well, at least let me give you a CPAP machine. I said, hell to the no. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it legit. Did I do it? No, I didn't. At the time, it was another year before I decided it's time to do it right. Because even then, everybody in my life who has had gastric bypass has had problems and gained their weight back or more. You will never have health by having the weight zapped off. You will never get rid of fat by putting nanoprobes in you that just eat up the fat. Because if you could, you'd start eating junk food twice as much, because you'd say, hey, there's no penalty. I can get fatter. And as a result, you'd have to take more nanoprobes to keep down all the cholesterol and the triglycerides from all the sugar junk you'd be getting. You would not have learned your lesson. It's like thinking when you're a child, thinking it would be cool to be a superhero. It would be one of the most nightmarish things if you stop and use logic. You don't want to fly, because if you get more than about 250 feet, you're going to start freezing because it's cold up there. And if you decide to turn invisible with your superpowers, you're going to go blind, because your cornea and iris and all of the parts of your eye have to reflect back on each other to give you any vision. So while it's fun to think about, you can't circumvent the design of your bodies. The same thing with hunger. I know the feeling. It's one of those things where you say, God, why can't I just turn it off? But again, nobody knows better than your body when you're hungry. And when you master hunger, like you do in a properly managed intermittent fasting plan, like my and other channels teach, you start to learn that the problem's not really weight. The problem's not even really, clogged arteries or inflammation. It is your balance in life that is the real animal to tame. That's where you learn to master yourself. So no, we don't want to lose our hunger, because that's not a recipe for success. It's one thing to starve and to be hungry and to drop a lot of weight. It's another thing to keep that off 3 years down the road. All right, that's all I got for today.